Hi, everyone. Welcome to Waste 360's Nothing Wasted podcast. On every episode, we invite the most interesting people in waste, recycling, and organics to sit down with us and chat candidly about their thoughts, their work, this unique industry, and so much more. So thanks for listening and enjoy this episode. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to remind you that Waste Expo has been reimagined for 2020. It will now be digital, all online, September 14th through the 17th, and registration should be live soon. So we look forward to delivering the same world-class content that you're used to, just from the convenience of your home, office, or anywhere else that you're working these days. So keep a lookout for registration, and we'll see you online soon. Hi, everyone. This is Liz Bothwell with Waste 360 with Marisa Adler, Senior Consultant for Resource Recycling Systems, and we fondly refer to them as RRS. Welcome, Marisa, and thanks for being on the show today.
Hi, Liz. Thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
I can't wait to dig into your background and career and some exciting projects that you've just launched. But to start, I want to let our audience know that you're one of our beloved first 40 under 40 winners. And it's been so exciting to watch your career. So could you give everyone some insight into your background and how you found the waste and recycling industry?
Yeah, absolutely. So my background is in natural resource management and conservation. That's what I studied as an undergrad and for my master's program. And then my goal out of grad school was to work for the New York City Department of Sanitation. And as luck would have it, they had an opening at the same time that I was graduating. And so I applied, and I was very excited that I got the position because it was right before the hiring freeze, actually, in 2008. So I got it right under the wire. And then I stayed with New York City Sanitation for the next 8 years, working across all different types of programs, from reuse and materials exchange programs and hazardous waste up through organics and implementing the organics program. And then after that, I moved over to Resource Recycling Systems, or like you said, RRS, and I've been here for about 4 years and really diving into the topic of textiles, among other things like plastic waste and other topics.
Oh, that's great. And like you said, you've worked a lot with municipalities. What's your secret to collaborating well with busy municipalities?
Yeah, municipalities definitely have a lot on their plate, and they don't always have sort of the wide open budgets that they wish they had. But it's one of the successes in working with municipalities. The thing that you always have to remember is it's good to know how they work. And so having worked in a municipal government environment, I understand how decisions are made and how they operate and how they make choices around programs. And so when you're working in the waste sector and working with municipalities, it's important to be sensitive to what they have to spend money on. And a lot of that funds that they're spending is on the collection and disposal of waste. And so that, combined with their citywide goals and diversion goals, is a really good foundation for how to enter into a conversation with, the municipal sector. And so we found a lot of success there, and also just being able to sort of talk to them in their language, and also giving case examples of where projects have succeeded in the past in similar municipal environments, other cities with similar demographics and similar population sizes, that kind of thing.
Oh, that's great. I think a lot of people could learn from that. And then you've also put together programs for waste generators. Can you share a little bit about that work?
Yeah, absolutely. So in my work with RRS, we work with a lot of clients who either have waste diversion goals, or they are looking for, more ways to incorporate recycled content into the products that they make. We work with the municipal sector, we work with the private sector, consumer product goods companies. And so when we're working with the municipal sector, we really look at what is their agenda, what what's the political agenda, the political environment that they're working within, and then what are their, agency goals and objectives around waste. And so we work really carefully with them to help craft approaches and strategies, for example, on creating organics diversion programs or siting new facilities or how to contract with service providers. And then on the private sector side, we are looking to work with clients who, for example, may have, like I said, goals around recycled content. And so we'll help them do sourcing studies and set strategies and help them determine a plan for how to reach their goals and identify what some tangible metrics for success could be.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. And then I know a labor of love that is ready to launch. You and RRS are releasing a textile recovery in the U.S. white paper. I mean, I can only imagine how long you've been working on this. Can you dig into that a little bit and tell us more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. I've been working on it probably a little too long, longer than I'm kind of embarrassed to say how long I've been working on it. But it's been a topic that RRS has been investigating probably for the last 4 or 5 years. And the white paper is a culmination of the research that we've done to date around textile waste and textile recovery. It's focused on systems in the U.S. And the goal of the white paper is to really bring people to a common place where we can all understand the current state of textile recovery and bring sort of the conversation all in one place, and create a baseline level of understanding and sort of recognition of the need for system solutions, scalable system solutions for textile waste in the U.S. And then, so it kind of presents today's environment around textile waste and recovery, and it identifies what the gaps are in the systems towards creating a circular economy for textiles, and then it posits some ideas for solutions.
Well, I think that's what's so interesting about this, not just sort of outlining where we are right now, because that's so important. And sometimes it's very hard to find the data on that, right? We've heard everything from a truckload of textiles goes to a landfill every 2 minutes to something else. So I can't wait to read that. And it's also intriguing that you're focusing on, what's next? What's the way forward now? Can you give any little secrets on that? What you guys think is a possible way forward, maybe a system that might work for recovery?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that is, first of all, what's really exciting is that there's a lot of buzz around this now. And I think people are finally giving attention to the problem of textile waste that is due, whereas in the past, maybe we have focused heavily on other areas. And so I think the solutions they're multifold. There are gaps along the systems in several very critical places. And so the solutions that we describe are not necessarily any, new or out of the box. They're very practical solutions to how we can fill the gaps in the information and in the infrastructure that currently exists and how we can move forward. So I'll give 2 examples. One is that the EPA tracks how much textile waste is generated year over year, but there is no current data that tell us the fiber composition and the blends and the frequency of blends and the volume of blends within that textile waste stream. And that's the information that we need to know in order for textile recyclers, whether it's mechanical or an advanced recycling technology, to develop their facilities and build them and scale and, prove their economic and their operational feasibility models. The white paper lays out that we need to conduct waste characterization studies of the residential and the commercial waste streams, both post-industrial, pre-consumer, and post-consumer, in order to create those foundational data sets that can then be used to build the rest of the system. So that's one example. And then the other example that I'll mention is that just like we have material recovery facilities or MRFs for our traditional curbside recyclables, we need something similar to that for textiles. We need the sorting capability to sort to those end market specifications, whether, like I said, it's a mechanical recycler or a chemical recycler. They have very specific feedstock specifications, and so we don't currently have the capacity in the US or really anywhere to take curbside collected textiles in mass and sort them to different grades. And so the white paper proposes the concept of a textile MRF, and the textile MRF starts with reuse because we want to focus on the waste hierarchy. So it would sort for quality first and foremost, and then after that it could sort either by fiber type using technology like some of the equipment that exists today, for example, fiber sort technology by valve and balance systems, and it would create specific bales based on those end market specifications. Or it could sort in addition by other criteria, like if there are RFID tags and brands, have specific RFID tags. If brands want their own material back, could sort by that, or other emerging identification technologies.
I love those ideas. That's fantastic. I really hope those happen, Marisa.
I know, me too. And the thing is, it doesn't have to be a dedicated textile MRF. There are facilities like sorters or graders who already have facilities in different geographies of the U.S. And they could incorporate some of these technologies, or we have charities like Goodwill and America's Thrift and Salvation Army who have sorting capacity now based on manual labor. And if they could expand a little bit and include some of the fiber sort technology in there as well, we can capitalize on the infrastructure and the expertise that's already out there. We don't have to start from scratch, but it should be regional. We do need, waste is a very local issue. So it would, if we had regional textile sorting facilities or sorting hubs, that would probably be an ideal situation.
Definitely. Now, are you seeing sort of the more traditional haulers and recyclers in the industry being interested in this?
Well, there are some very interesting models on the collection side. One of them is a curbside recycling company called Simple Recycling, and they do curbside pickup of source-separated textiles free of charge to both the municipality and the resident. And then we have another company called Retriever, who has an app-based technology that allows for residents to schedule door-to-door pickup of used clothing, and they do electronics as well. So we have those kinds of models. I think there is a lot of room for traditional haulers to engage in the space. There's so much textile waste that's available for collection and recycling and reuse instead of disposal. And some of the existing, some of those technologies I just mentioned, for example, are asset light. And so it's either the service or the technology, the scheduling technologies that they offer, and they're looking to partner up with haulers and people who have, collection fleet and collection staff available. So I definitely do think there is opportunity in that space.
Definitely. And then, one thing that's come out of the pandemic is that consumers and of course manufacturers too want more transparency into their supply chains. Are you seeing this as well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and right now, on both sides, from the company or the brand or the retailer perspective, and also on the resident and the consumer perspective, there's not a whole lot of transparency into what happens when you either drop your clothing off at a local charity or thrift store, or you place it into a clothing collection bin, or you return it to the retailer in a collection container that they have. And it's hard to provide that transparency right now because it's a very sort of complex network that the material travels through to reach their final end destinations. But yes, I think we have to be able to build a system that is transparent, offers that transparency. And I think that we'll get there through the combination of scalable systems and also through the tracking technology that's evolving today, whether that's RFID or blockchain or the digital circular ID concept.
Oh, that's good. And then I saw that you've spoken at FIT. Now, what do you think the next generation of fashion students think about fashion's impact on the planet? Are they thinking about this stuff? Is the awareness there?
Mm-hmm. I think it is. At least, the students that I spoke with and the designers that I speak to today, I think the training is starting to evolve on thinking about end of life, thinking about designing for recyclability, designing for durability, designing for repairability. I think that, as more and more students are learning this and going out and entering the workforce, I think we'll start seeing a shift. But it's also critical that the companies they go to work for are embracing it and paying attention to it and dedicating this R&D effort and time and funding to it. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to actualize that.
That makes sense too. And then I know, for this white paper, you and RRS had it reviewed by a lot of different representatives, right, in the fashion industry
Mm-hmm.
and beyond. Can you talk a little bit about that process and what they thought about this?
Yeah, absolutely. We wanted to make sure that we were depicting the current state of reality accurately, and also that the ideas and the gaps in the information that we were describing were accurate and sound, really. So we reached out to representatives from several different points along the recovery value chain to review it and weigh in. And so we had reviewers from brands and retailers and advanced recycling technologies from some of the trade associations like the Secondary Materials and Recycled Textiles Association that represents a lot of the sorter graders and mechanical recyclers. And we had them all review it to make sure that they agreed with the description of the way we described the textile waste and recovery space as it stands today, and also to vet our ideas against their expertise. So talking about how do we close the gaps? So much of the devil is in the details. So are we getting those details correct? And are we identifying the correct gaps? And are we, is the textile MRF actually what we need in order to it's like the linchpin in the system to sort of unlock the flow? And so, everyone was, very helpful, pointed out areas where, you didn't quite get this exactly right. Here's how you need to change it. And all in all, it was a very, very fruitful and positive endeavor, to engage with those stakeholders.
Oh, I bet. And to know that you were on the right track and that you were pursuing it properly. And that your perspective path forward made sense to them too, because they would be living it, right?
Right, exactly. Yep, yeah. It was very important to us that we weren't sort of just doing research and compiling this information just so it could be in a report and sit there. We wanted it to be actionable, and we wanted it to provide helpful insights that, help people make decisions in order to move things forward.
Well, that's awesome. And then I know that you had written in the report some statistics about just how quickly textile waste has grown compared to
some in the other waste stream. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, it's really astounding. I mean, if you take the EPA data, the U.S. EPA Sustainable Materials Management Facts and Figures reports from 2000 through today, and you chart them and you sort of just run the calculations, it's pretty flooring. I mean, textile waste is by far the fastest growing material category in the entire waste stream. So, for example, textiles increased almost 80% since 2000, just on a pure weight basis, whereas the entire overall waste stream only grew 10%. And then if you're looking on a per capita basis, if you're looking on a per capita basis, it increased 50% per person as compared to a 5% decrease in the overall waste generation per capita. So it just goes to show how quickly textile waste is growing compared to the other components of our waste stream. And just for comparison, plastics is a distant second on that. And there's so much attention and programming and funding going towards plastics, which, is deserving of all of that attention. But we also need to look at what's happening in textiles. And I'll also just point out there is a really interesting nexus between plastics and textiles, because the majority of the fibers that go into textiles is polyester. And polyester is a plastic. It's derived from fossil fuels. And we do, as RRS, we do a lot of work with consumer product goods companies and beverage companies. And we have worked with a lot of them who are saying, listen, we have these recycled content goals, these rPET goals. There's not enough supply right now. And the supply that we do have is funneling into fiber, into rPET fiber, because it's just an easier pathway for it to take. And they're coming to us saying, how can we get either our rPET, our PET back, or how can we unlock new sources? And so the textile industry is also saying we need more and more recycled polyester, recycled PET, because we need to meet our goal, our recycled content goals. And so it's, textile waste is one of the very obvious solutions. If we can keep textiles circulating within the textile industry, and we can keep PET bottles circulating within the beverage industry and have the closed loop systems, then that would be the ideal solution. But to do that, we need to establish the infrastructure and the processes to be able to collect textiles en masse, sort them to specifications, and pre-process them for the recyclers, and then give the recyclers the security in knowing that they can rely on feedstocks and invest in the infrastructure that they need to develop.
Right. Hey, it's audacious, but it's doable, right?
Absolutely doable. It's definitely ambitious, but it is absolutely doable, and it's critical that we do it. It's going to create more resilient supply chains for the textile industry, certainly, and it has economic value. Right now, we're just throwing away textiles that are literally feedstocks for supply chains. And I think the value proposition and the business case are there. We just need to make it abundantly clear to everybody that it is there.
Absolutely. And then, some of the inputs, why that has risen so much. Is it fast fashion? What do you attribute that to?
I think fast fashion definitely is a contributing factor. I don't think necessarily we can point fingers and have, blame them for everything. I think that, there aren't solutions right now to collect and sort and recycle textiles. So the lack of infrastructure is also another reason. Also consumer behavior. 85% of the textiles that we generate are disposed of right now. There's a long way we could go in each and every person's behavior to reuse or recycle those textiles instead. So I think that there are several underlying reasons for it, not the least of which is fast fashion. That's definitely a factor, but I think it's more than just one thing.
Definitely. And I know Adam Minter in his book Secondhand is, one of his bits of advice to the industry was what you were saying, Marisa, have tighter relationships with the donation centers and really tap that expertise and see where that takes us, because he thinks that was a bit of a gold mine.
Yeah, definitely. They have decades and decades and decades of experience, collecting and sorting textiles. I mean, you talk to some of the sorter graders and they can just pick up a material and just by feeling it tell you the fiber composition of it with relative accuracy. And yeah, they know inside and out the current pathways that exist, and we need to leverage those. It has to be part of any solution moving forward, and they have to be scaled also. There's a lot of room for growth within the existing recovery pathways. It's not, it's not just all about the chemical recycling. It has to really be preserving the embedded energy of the product first and foremost. So if it can just be reused as is, that's the pathway it should take. If it can be repaired through someone like the renewal workshop, then that's the pathway we need to take. And then if it can go to a cascading use like rag or shoddy, then we should do that, because that offsets the need for virgin feedstocks in the production of rags and shoddy. And then if it can be recycled, either mechanically or chemically back into a fiber, then that opens up a whole new world of possibilities for the industry. So yeah, I think there is definitely a lot to be said for leveraging the expertise and the activities that are in existence today and scaling them to be part and parcel of a larger solution.
And do you think policy plays a role?
Yeah, policy always plays a role. I think when it comes to policy, at least, the U.S. is sort of a very market-driven economy. But there definitely is a role for policy, and what kind of policy remains to be seen. It could be sort of an incentive for diverting textiles, or a disincentive for disposing of them. It could be a policy that supports recycling market development, or it could be a policy that looks more like extended producer responsibility. But one of the important roles of policy is that it creates an even playing field. And so we've heard a lot from the brands and retailers and industry stakeholders that we've spoken to that, that role that policy can play as a leveling the playing field would be an important one. Because, the textile industry is not one that traditionally has allocated, they don't have huge budgets for R&D, research and development, like some other industries may have. And so it's really hard for them to invest a lot of money into, testing and piloting and scaling, these recovery system ideas. But if there were a policy that helped level the playing field and you could sort of leverage this collective investment, I think that's something that could be really helpful. That sort of collective investment is missing right now.
Mm-hmm, definitely. So on another note, do you think some of the emerging chemical recycling technology has legs?
I do. There's a long way to go before we can commercialize those technologies. But I do think they hold a lot of promise. It's really one of the only ways right now that we can envision extracting value from some of those sort of harder to recycle parts of the waste stream. And then obviously with textiles specifically, there's a really big role in unlocking access to that polyester that's ending up in landfill right now, and also the cotton. So I really do think there's a significant role that these technologies are going to play. I have confidence that they are viable and feasible in today's, in our marketplace. There are gaps in the data right now, and it's a little bit of a chicken or egg situation. They're not going to invest in building that infrastructure until they have, reliable sources of supply. So, and they also need to have those offtake agreements from the supply chain for the recycled feedstocks that they're creating, whether that's, an rPET pellet or like a cellulosic fiber. They need both those assurances on either side of their business in order to feel comfortable moving forward. So, but I definitely see them as part of the solution.
Right. And so what do you think is next for waste recycling and organics?
I think collaboration and research is next, at least in the textile space. When we're talking larger waste recycling organics, I think textiles is the next frontier. And I think that, people are really starting to pay attention to it and really starting to give it the attention that's needed and the serious attention to move it forward.
That's awesome. Good. So, Marisa, you've accomplished so much already in your career. What advice do you have for young professionals entering the industry like you once did?
Yeah, I would say, you have to have fun with it. You have to have a passion for what you're doing. You need to believe in the value of managing our waste systems appropriately and diverting waste and expanding options for recovery. And, just learn about other things that are going on, learn where the gaps are, learn where there could be synergies, and network.
I think that's great advice for any industry, really, about collaboration that you said previously, too, and passion. I love all of that. And it really comes through in everything that you're doing. Well, is there anything else you want to share before I let you go? I know you're a busy woman.
No, I think that's it. I mean, I'm looking very forward to having the white paper released and seeing what conversations it's able to support and launch. And looking very forward to the Waste Expo conference this year.
Yes. Maybe you could tell us about your session at Waste Expo Together Online. How's that looking?
Yeah, it's looking really great. We've got some good speakers lined up. We're going to be joined by Nicole Bassett from the Renewal Workshop, Rachel Kibbe from Retriever, Hilda Van Down from Circle Economy, and Peter Madronowski from Titan Biosciences. So we've got a panel that really can speak to all the different points along the recovery value chain. And we're hoping to have a very active conversation about how we can each play a role in filling the gaps that currently exist and moving the system forward.
Oh, I can't wait for that. It's going to be great. What a blockbuster panel you put together. So thank you for that. And we look forward to seeing it.
Great. Thank you.
And then where can people download the white paper and learn more about your work? Do you want to share the URL for RRS or a Twitter handle or anything like that?
Yeah, you can go to recycle.com and the paper will be available for download on the RRS website.
Awesome. Oh, Marisa, this has been so great catching up with you and seeing how you're doing and the great work that you're doing. And everyone download the white paper. You're going to be pleasantly surprised of all the details and information that went into this. And amazing work, Marisa, you and your team. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Liz. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk about textiles with me today.
Oh, it's been great. And we will catch up with you soon, I'm sure, and look forward to seeing you at Waste Expo Together Online.
Great. So do I.
All right. Thanks, Marisa. Talk to you soon.
Okay. Thanks. Bye.